Hello, I'm Holger Biebrach, a 3D artist and technical director based in Hamburg, and I'm also beta tester for Cinema 4D. And I'm going to show you the brand new take system in Cinema 4D release 17. I think it's the core feature and it will change the workflow of many of you. I will explain you what the take system is and how to use it. I also will show you the new token system and a bit of the new variation shader. So the take system is a render layer management which you can use to store different states of your scene in one file and later render out these different takes to different results. You can use it to render out different render settings, different cameras, different object settings and layer settings. Also, you can use it for material IDs setup or different passes like object buffer, paths with different colors in one path. I will show you how to set this up in this tutorial. Also, I'm gonna show you a simple example how to use it to render out separate objects like background and foreground. Yeah, so let's start. Okay, in this scene I have no takes, only the main take, which is the master take, and any scene you open in release 17 will have the main take. You can't delete it, and this is where all your main changes will be stored. You can add a new take by double-clicking, and this will also enable the take. This icon is there to enable the take you want, and with these icons here you can choose the camera for this take, and here you can choose the render setting. Inherit from parent is on by default, which will take the settings you have in your main take. Okay, let's just call this low quality, and I will add a new render setting. Let's call this low quality. And I will just make some changes to physical settings and to global illumination. And now I can choose this render setting here in this drop down. So this take will render with the chosen render setting. Then I do a child take of low quality and call it low quality cam2. And for this I will change the camera to cam2. Also I change this to low quality. So now any change I make in low quality take will get transferred to the children, but it will render a different camera and this render setting. So this is a base setup now to render lower quality, and now I'm gonna make a new take to render out some different layer settings. Let's call this take inner parts. And now I'm gonna show you how to overwrite values. What you need to know is that there's this auto take mode. In this mode you will be able to override anything, any change you make in the attributes manager will get overwritten. So if this is off, you can't change any parameter. You see any parameter in the attributes manager is grayed out. So you can't change anything. You need to go to the main take to make any changes to the objects. But if you're in this take and you enable auto take, You can change any parameter, but you will see that the values are all blue. That indicates that you will override settings here. This is quite handy because you would maybe accidentally override settings which you don't want. So in this inner parts setting, I want to change some layer states. I want to disable blue plastic and black plastic, for example. And now you see this is invisible here. And I can render the inner part objects. Also, I will disable glass. And now I can switch from main to inner parts. Okay, so what you can see here on the right is if you select a take, you can always see all parameters you have changed here on the right. You can also change these parameters here by double-clicking, and this change will be made for this take. Now I want to create a take to render out material IDs. For this I create a new take, and let's call this RGB mask, and I will create some new materials, and just make sure to make these changes in the main take. And I will put on luminance and choose a red color here. Let's call this red. And let's copy this and make this green. Let's copy this and make it blue. Okay. So I'm gonna show you now a little trick. And this is using the override material. So I'm gonna make a new take render setting here, call it material IDs, and for this render setting I activate material override and use a black material as override. So that way everything will get rendered black. But now I want to render out these materials, the red, green and blue, so I can exclude some materials here. So I will take these materials and exclude them. Now I need to apply these materials to some objects here. So what you can do is choose a material and right-click, select texture text. And now you are able to drag a different material into this slot. So I will use red for the glass material. And let's take green for the plastic. And for these blue plastic parts, I will take a blue material. Okay, I'm fine. Maybe I could also render the buttons, these black plastics with a red material. Also, maybe I'm gonna make this also red. So now you see that all these tags have different materials assigned. But if I go back to the main tag, everything is back to default. So this is one way to change materials. There's different methods to make this. You can also use override groups to change material tags. But I show you this later. So now I have created a material path, and yeah, that's basically it. I want to show you a little trick to render out object buffer IDs, and I will use the new variation shader for this. So let's say you have some object buffers. I will just set up some. Object buffer 1 for the glass, and for this oh object buffer 2 for the main part here, and for these buttons I will use object buffer 3. Okay. And I'm gonna make a new take, call it object buffers, and I will create a material which I will call object IDs. And in this material, and again let's do this in the main take, I will do a luminance shader, and I will take the variation shader. And inside the variation shader you can choose object buffer IDs. That way the colors will take effect based on object buffer IDs. So each same ID will get the same color. And here with all these settings you can change how the color will get applied. And I will disable random color and crank the gradient blend all the way up. And also I put the gradient mode to replace. Now the shader will take any random color of this gradient based on the object buffer ID. And now I just use a different gradient preset to have these base colors here. I will just delete white and black and choose distribute nodes to have only these colors. I think I don't need so many, so I delete also yellow and distribute nodes. That will be good, I think. Okay, now I go to my main take, and I will make a new render setting and call it object buffers. And for this render setting I make a material override and use this object IDs material which has the variation shader. Also I choose standard render and turn off global illumination so it renders faster. And I will choose this render setting for this take. And now if I render, you will see that all the colors are assigned by the object buffers. If I don't like the the chosen distribution of the colors, I can go inside the shader seed and change the seed. And now I have a problem because some IDs get the same color, so you need to be careful here. I think this is good. Okay, so this is how you would render object buffer IDs to one path. I think this is quite a nice trick with the variation shader, but there's a lot more what you can do with the variation shader. So this is a different story. In this last example, I want to show you how you would render out only parts of your scene. So let's say I'm not content with my screens here and I want to replace the shader, or I want to crank up the render settings for this, or use a different reflection, then you would not need to render out everything again, but you would want to render out only the screens. For this, I create a new take and call it screens, and I will add a override group. And a override group lets you override certain tags for all objects that you put inside this group. So this is like a secondary organization of your scene, which is not dependent on the object manager hierarchy. So let's add a compositing tag here and call this mat objects. And I want to put all objects inside here, but not the screen here. So I deselect the screen and only select all other objects and put them in here. Now you can see that all objects I drag inside this override group will get this compositing tag, because I choose a group tag compositing. And now I can go inside this tag and choose any setting, which will be affected to all the objects that are inside that group. So I will turn on mat object, and now all objects are black and will also make the correct alpha. So I render out only these two objects which are not inside of this group. Now I can choose a render setting for this take, and let's try rendering this. And as you can see, only the screen gets rendered. And even if I'm now in a different camera and if the screen is behind this object, I will not see anything, because the other objects are acting as mat objects. So this is a pretty nice technique to only render out a certain part of your renderings, so you save render time because you don't need to render everything again. The same I did with this file. I made a pass only for the landscape, so you would render out the landscape, the background, and then in a second rendering you would render out only the spaceship, which is also quite important if you use post motion blur, and it's always good to have the foreground object separately rendered and the background object with all informations. So you don't have the cutout of the spaceship here, for example. Okay, I hope you liked this presentation and you will like take system like I do. It will change a lot. And yeah, that's it for now, and have fun. I forgot something. The most important. Well, actually it's not the most important, but it's very important, I think. And that is the token system. And it's kind of related to the take system because you can use take tokens. So what is that? I have here my master render settings, and all my child render settings get the settings from the master parent settings. So I don't need to go into each setting and make my changes. It's enough to make the changes in the master parent setting. So let's look at my file structure. So I have this file with a version number and a text folder and nothing else. Well, there's another file here in this hierarchy, but I have only one cinema file and no render output. Now I can go into my output path, and what I can do, I can use dots to go up a hierarchy, And if I use only one dot, that means I'm in the same hierarchy than my file. But if I use two dots, I'm up a hierarchy. So I can go up a hierarchy slash and then create a output. And this folder doesn't exist, as you have seen. But on render time, Cinema 4D will create this folder. So I don't have to care about my folder structure. I just create the folders by typing them in here. And now I can use tokens to create another folder. So I use the $sign to say this is a token. And now I use take as the token name slash. So now I created a take folder, and inside the take folder I render the result, which should have the project name. So I use the token P or J, and this will use the project name as as the name for the file. There's quite a few tokens you can use. For example, camera, the current frame, the current pass and user pass, the take, the frame range, the frame rate, and render settings and resolution. So all these informations you can write into your output path, and you don't need to always change this. If you have set up this one time, you can leave it. And if you render out a new version, you just save your file as version 6, and this will be transferred to your render result output name. Okay, and as you can see in all my children settings, these names has been transferred. So now I'm ready to go, and now I will show you how you render out takes. So let's check the low quality was correct. For the screens, I use low quality. For the object buffers, I use object buffers. And for the masks, I use masks. Okay, it's always good to double check the render settings you choose here and the camera. Camera 2 for this, and this is all inherited. Okay, and let's use for the main camera, let's use the orbit camera in the main take, so it will take the main camera and the orbit camera for all these takes. Now what you have to do is mark the takes you want to render. So I want to render all takes. And now you can use these icons here, or you can choose these menus to render out all marked takes to picture viewer, or you can choose to team render or render only to picture viewer. You can also use the render curve, and there you can add objects, the current project, or you add project with all takes or with marked takes. And you can also use this command, file, save marked takes with assets, and this will create a file for each take, so you can render out this with Team Render Server. But let's use this and just render marked takes to picture viewer. And this will start the rendering, and I will just pause my video here and wait till it's finished. So the rendering has finished, and now you can see here all my takes, the different cameras, the different settings and passes, and the screen. And now if I go to the Finder, you can see there is this output folder which is created on render time, and inside there is a folder for each take, and there are the results. So you have a folder structure generated on render time based on the tokens you use. So as you can see in the render settings, I used these two dots to go up a hierarchy. Then I used output to make a folder called output, and then used the take token to create a folder with the name of the take. And then I used the project token to name the file after the project name. And you can use this for any of your workflow. And now if I would save this file incremental, it would create a new folder structure for this version. So this is a very powerful system, and you don't have to go into your render settings and make the changes, because this will be done for you, and this saves a lot of time, I think. Okay, that's it now. Have fun, and I hope you can wait for release 17. And yeah, see you. Bye bye.